John Adams writes about his experience when he first encounters the King of England. Now, as many of you know, John Adams was the second president of the United States. He was a very godly man filled with integrity. What you might not know about him is that he was also the first United States ambassador to Great Britain, or the British Empire. So he arrives in London, and right away he goes to meet the king, as ambassadors are supposed to do. Well, when he gets near the chamber where the king's supposed to be, he has to go through all of these motions when he approaches the king. So he has to bow 3 times and walk a few steps and bow and then walk a few more steps, like going through all of these hoops just to get in the king's presence. And then once he gets into the king's presence, then he can finally talk. And for John Adams, this is really difficult because he's like, well, I'm going to go through all the motions. Well, what if I mess up? Or what if I get all the motions right? What if I do everything perfectly and yet nothing really happens? Any request of the king I make, he's not going to grant it. After all, the United States had just had a revolution against Great Britain. And even if I do make the request, is the king even able to grant it? Because as John Adams comes before the king, he realizes that the king is just a man, the most powerful man in the world, but still just a man. Prayer is one of the most important aspects, practices of the Christian life. And a lot of times, we don't pray. And we don't pray for a few reasons. One is we're not sure if we're going through the motions the right way. Are we doing prayer right? We don't pray because we are afraid that the words aren't going to come out right. And maybe we wonder, okay, well, even if I do the motions right and I pray right, is my request even going to be heard? And we're afraid, is my request too small, or perhaps it's too big? But in our reading, and this is the Psalm for Sunday, Psalm 100, we get a much different perspective of what it's like to approach the throne of God. So rather than going through all the hoops, rather than being nervous, it basically says this: shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him. Again, not going through the motions, but with joyful songs. As we then approach him, know that the Lord is God. He is king over everything, is what this text is trying to say. It is he who made us. But again, rather than being nervous before the king, you and I, we can be at peace. Well, why? Because we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. In other words, we are his children. When we come before him in prayer, we are like a child making a request of their loving Father. And this is what the text said: for the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. So when we come before God, we don't have to worry about going through all the right motions, and we can trust that not only that he hears us, but that he rejoices at our prayer, because we are his beloved children. So the only wrong way to pray is to not pray at all.